crazy it is that Kanye's waking up a bunch of Jewish people and pointing them to God. Like last night on that Gavin McInnes interview, I'll explain it.
Even Tim's like, wait, you're not serious, are you? Okay, wait, I want to hear this. How does MOONLORD get out of this one? This is quite the pickle you found yourself in, my friend.
Is the Roman patriarchy. That thing created a church to get into people's minds. It tried to control the world. It's still trying to control the world through its church. Like, that's the white person problem, is the Roman patriarchy. That's a real thing. The Jewish problem is the banking cartels that were
And he did not disappoint. My word. Just release him. Sorry, I wasn't ready for MOONLORD to go full moon there.
Let's do a hard segue into this story with Alex Jones. We had this from timcast.com. Quote, burn in hell, Hitler. Alex Jones comments on a Ye interview. Quote, I felt like I was sucked into a giant publicity stunt, said the InfoWars host. So everybody remembers what happened when Ye went on Alex Jones. He also went on with Gavin McInnes. And I guess what Alex was saying is that before the show, they agreed not to talk about that stuff. Then when the show went on the air, that's all they talked about. And he feels like it was a big publicity stunt.
I think Alex, his comments were pretty interesting. He said that Kanye had a 5th grade level understanding of Hitler. He also challenged Nick Fuentes to a debate.
Can we be completely transparent here, by the way? Every single one of these fucking ghouls was trying to play the game to normalize Ye. As in, I'm going to bring Ye onto my show, and I'm going to try and soften the blow of some of the more extreme things he said so that we can really mainstream the concepts that I want, which is, like, can we just normalize, why is it that the Jews control the banks and the media? I'm not saying that this is, like, inherent to Jewish people. I could even be secular Jewish people. I don't know, however I want to word it, but I do want that to just kind of be normalized, just so we can ask it. Like, I just don't want it to be offensive for me to say that, and people will be like, whoa, you're an anti-Semitic conspiracy theorist. No, that's what we want to do. So here, one of the most famous musicians of all time, one of the most powerful black men of all time, this is definitely the fucking moment we've been waiting for. That's why Alex Jones orchestrated all of this. As soon as he saw the DEFCON 3 to the Jews, he was like, my calling, and then immediately was like, oh, Fuentes, Milo, activate, we're doing this whole thing. So same thing with Tim. Tim thought he could navigate, also turn this into one of the, let's break the internet, get incredible amounts of views, and that he did get, but none of them have the tool set to deal with Ye and the stuff that Ye is doing. All of them have been trying to pacify Ye or make what Ye says more palatable. Like, Ye will come out and he'll be like, hey, yeah, the Jews control the banks. And then they'll be like, well, by that you mean like the Jewish mafia and that they control Hollywood, right? Or something like that. And he's like, no, he's like, we should talk about Hitler. Hitler did great things. He's like, well, no, what you mean to say is that, like, you're not Hitler and you're not a Nazi. And he's like, no, I'm trying to say that I love Hitler and I love Nazis. Well, so what you're trying to say is you love the uniforms. You like the uniforms. No, it's not the aesthetics of what they wore. I love Nazis and Hitler. It's like, well, I don't love Nazis. So things just, it was a complete disaster. Like, I would say Tucker Carlson kind of accomplished what he wanted because he didn't do it in a live setting. If he had done a live show, I guess his producers knew better. If he had done a live show with Ye, it would have been just as disastrous. We saw what he cut out, right? He cut out all the pretty, like, whoa, those are some yikesy anti-Semitic statements. Nothing as bad as I love Hitler or I love Nazis. That's obviously something that he was saving for InfoWars. But every single one of these people, they bring Ye on. They want to agree with like 80% of what he says about the Jews. It's like, I'm with you as far as like they control the media and the banks part, but don't say that you love Hitler. And then it didn't work out. It was such a disaster for all of them in both cases, both in Tim and in fucking Alex Jones's case. The only victor being fucking the Groypers, Nick Fuentes, and that entire movement. We're just like fucking, they're loving every part of this. But it is creating this enormous schism on the right, and it's separating the more radical fractions of the right, because when it was Turning Point USA versus the Groypers, it's like, well, it's the neo-Nazis versus like the very far right Christian nationalist reactionary conservatives. So this is quite a schism. But now we've got the hardcore anti-LGBTQ plus Christian nationalists such as Stephen Crowder, Alex Jones, splintering with the Nazis as well, creating schisms within schisms.
Debate about history and specifically World War II. There was also a reference to him potentially being a homosexual. So Alex kind of went off a little bit here. I don't know if he felt pressure, but we got to understand Alex was the man that has been talking about Prescott Bush. He's been talking about Margaret Sanger. He's been talking about a lot of American elites financing this larger eugenics, depopulation, Nazi World War II kind of movement. This was kind of his moment to kind of bring it back. Some people are saying he should have brought it back when Ye was on and pushed back a little bit more, but that's up to people's own interpretations of how they saw the interview. I don't know. What did you think of that interview? And what do you think about his latest comments now talking about fifth grade level understanding of World War II?
I think that the interview that Alex did with Ye was really important because it highlighted why the First Amendment is important. In the sense of the reason why I'm a free speech absolutist is because I think that you should allow your enemy or just anybody in society, right, to really say what they think about certain issues. I think that free speech is so effective because it essentially allows people to expose themselves, to expose what they really think, to expose, and allows the public as well to decide if their views are good or bad. So I think, you know,
I'm not capping for Ye or anything, but for years, some of these same figures have been either profiting or profited the Jewish question or have been in the sphere of those who do not. No one insults their intelligence. Oh, yeah, 100%. Oh, I completely agree with you. I think, like, it's so rich for Alex Jones and Steven Crowder to come out now and be like, oh, he's pretty extreme. Yeah, no, we're not the team Hitler Nazis guy. No. Come on. He's got bipolar disorder. This is clearly the ravings of a madman that we were totally fine with platforming for our own goals. But anyways, the writing's on the wall, everybody. Maybe he's a closet homosexual. I don't know. Just all the excuses that come to mind. Like, what the fuck are you all saying? All of you have been spreading this shit for so long. All of you have been doing this kind of stuff. All of you have been pushing the fucking, well, I mean, maybe he does control, the Jews do control the banks or parts of them or the media. Can we not ask that? You know, like they're always doing this. Alex Jones, half of his shit is just fucking elites, globalists, the Illuminati, elites, globalists, the lizard people, Illuminati, elites, globalists, lizard people. Well, I mean the bankers. I'm talking about you know what I mean. They, right? But we keep they in the brackets, triple parenthesis. Like, yeah, this has been their bread and butter. It's just the problem being is that Ye took it too far. Like, Ye, like I said, pulled their masks off and just like threw them and smashed them right in their faces. And because of that, now they're all doing this like 180. Like everyone is. Tim Pool has already done his. Tim Pool has tried to do his whole hero arc where he's like, you know, I just wasn't going to tolerate it. Not in my house. You know, you come in here, if you're going to start saying things that like, you know, if you're going to do identitarianism, which you know I hate identitarian, I'm going to call you out. I'm going to call you out on the spot because I'm big, brave, and I'm really tough. So, you know, and I did that. And I'm really proud of myself for that. And they just fled. They fled the compound. They look weak. And so now Alex Jones and Steven Crowder's is basically like, oh, you know, fifth grade understanding, you know, maybe they're gay. I don't know. They're probably gay.
Ye going on with Alex not really pushing back was a good way for the public to really, I guess, delve into what Kanye actually thought about this issue. Regarding what Alex is saying now, I do think that Kanye is being used by the people that are around him. I'll be honest with it. Tim, you disagree with me on this?
I know you don't think so, Tim, because you're one of those people. That was you last week. No, I definitely have the skill set to handle this. If things, you know, I'll steer things. Let's just say he gets on, okay, my friends. He gets on, and when he does, I'll talk to him and I'll smooth things out. If he tries to go very identitarian, I can stop it. I will be able to stop that. It's like, first question was like, so tell me about the Trump dinner. Yeah, I will, but I just want to bring up anti-Semitism. And then it was just like, and Tim's like, I kind of agree. Well, is that racist? Well, funny, Nick Fuentes, that they would call you a white nationalist when you're working for one of the most powerful black men in America. That's kind of funny. Huh? Well, okay, are we going right back to the Jews? That was kind of I was trying to give you okay, oh, right, here we go. Oh, fun.
Look, when we hear that Alex is saying that they agreed not to talk about this stuff, about Hitler and all that, and then they did anyway, and he felt like it was a publicity stunt, that's exactly what I was saying it felt like. Yeah, exactly. Like the whole thing was planned out. So a couple points, and maybe it's being a dead horse, but
Neil Chinchilla, so does Vadim. Vadim's got some Tim Pool stories as well. You know,
Ye went on with Gavin McInnes. We'll talk about that. But a couple points, like they initially asked us for a return flight right after the show. We couldn't do it. It was not. We were told by we couldn't get a flight. It wasn't possible. They ended up getting a private plane ready to go right afterwards. They also said we'll talk about the campaign, the plans, and then immediately jumped into this stuff. Same thing to do with Alex Jones. So the other thing too is when I look at what happened with Gavin McInnes, Ye is just saying the craziest possible things. He's doing it again. I want to give a shout out to Viva Frey and Robert Barnes, because Barnes made a really, really great point. Something that we missed, obviously. And it's that Ye's talking about this tax liability that he's got. $50 million or whatever, and they're trying to put him in jail. And he was saying that we didn't notice and we should have pressed on it. He's right. Maybe Ye is trying to appear crazy so he doesn't go to prison, so that he can come off as like mentally unwell. He didn't intentionally. What did Barnes say?
I mean, if people were doing the armchair athletes the way that every single one on the right is doing right now, everyone would be making accusations about you, Tim, you and every single person on the compound, not to mention Alex Jones for years. You don't get that in the opposite direction. It's not like, well, I can explain every single racist thing and transphobic thing that Alex Jones does because he has clear mental illness. It's like, I'm just going to absolve him of all the racist and transphobic things he does because of that. But like, y'all were getting played, but it wasn't by Ye, it was by Nick Fuentes. Nick Fuentes was playing all of you. He is the victor in all of this. Like, Ye Ye is getting to say the most horrifying things that come to his mind, and it benefits Nick Fuentes, the neo-Nazi, who's sitting right beside you there, smiling. He's the only person in the room. Alex Jones even looks nervous. Alex Jones, I'm in the Twilight Zone right now. I just, so hopefully we're going to talk about costumes from now on instead of the actual Nazis. That's not working out so well.
Example he gave was that Ye is going to come out with the defense that the reason he didn't pay taxes, he was scared that it was going to go to the Jewish people or something like that. Like he'll make up an excuse so it sounds like he's unhinged, and then he gets a slap on the wrist minimum security thing instead of like a serious 25-year tax evasion thing. Mm-hmm. So Ye goes on with Gav McInnes, and he says, what did he do? He called for Jewish people to forgive Hitler. It's just really, really out there is putting it lightly. I mean, it's nuts. It's nuts. And in it,
if this was genuinely what you believe, which, to be honest, could 100% be what's happening right now. This could be someone in the depths of a manic episode, and people should be bringing light to the amount of attention that is surrounding, especially men and mental health, feeling that they can't bring themselves to go to talk to doctors, or it's emasculating to take medication, or it's emasculating to even visit a doctor in the first place. Those are serious conversations. I back them 100%. You should have those talks and those conversations. But what does it say about all of you? What does it say about every single one of you? That you now think this, or you knew this the entire time, and you were just willing to fucking exchange the whole thing for super chats and views and clicks, like, and well knowing, well, this just could go a little sideways, but I can control it because, again, I'm a superstar journalist and this is going to be very easy. And then woof, look what happened.
this is amazing.
Look what happens every time. It's like, this happened with Tim Pool. Alex Jones is like, well, yeah, but I can take care of it. Happens again with Alex Jones, and worse. And then Gavin McInnes is like, well, yeah, but I can take care of it. Happens even worse with Gavin McInnes. And in that case, it's once again someone in a room agreeing with most of the anti-Semitic shit that Ye said. Same thing with fucking Alex Jones. I will grant Tim Pool's that his was softer, because Tim Pool's kind of just a coward in general. So he's just kind of sitting there and he's like, I'm not going to push back too much on all the things you just said. And maybe I'll say, well, I like to say corporate media instead of saying they, them, kind of thing. I prefer corporate media.
Gavin McInnes is like, when you meet someone, you judge them like by the individual, right? And he's like, I don't. Ye just outright says it. There's no way. Okay, like here's my issue. I think Barnes may be right about him trying not to go to jail for tax evasion or whatever the issue is, but like it seems like Kanye is pretending to be crazy poorly. You know what I mean? Like maybe not. Maybe because people believe it. They're like, how?
Hey, sorry, which one is it? You can't wait. So he's actually going through a manic episode and he's, quote, crazy, or he's pretending to do it, or he's pretending to do it, but now he's pretending to do it poorly, or he's doing it so well that, wow, it got to this point. Like multiple different things.
But he says things like, well, he's just saying stupid, crazy, and outrageous things.
But he's always been crazy and outrageous. That's why, for me, I feel like it's him being used by the people around him to push a specific message or narrative,
like
whether or not
Tim
he
Pool
agrees
show?
with that. I don't know. I've been a Kanye West fan for a long time. I also have not met him in person like you guys have, so I feel like my commentary is based on what I'm seeing in the headlines. You guys have more of a background
He
to
was
it.
totally different before the cameras
Off
rolled.
camera.
Totally different. And I kind of wish we kind of filmed a little bit just to give people a perspective, because everything was very cordial, very, understanding. A lot of the craziness and nonsense wasn't there. And then the cameras went on. It was like a different person was sitting there.
To be fair, at the very start of that, everyone was cordial and nice, and it was just surreal and weird. And it was within his initial conversation about the dinner that things started to derail.
Different vibe, a different energy, and everything just changed in the room.
See, I think he got just like MK Ultra'd by Hollywood, so...
But this is the thing. Everything we're hearing, like the things said on Alex Jones, the things he said on Gavin McInnes, the things he said here is only what people saw publicly. Right. That's why I thought the behind the scenes things with him that we did was so important, because for whatever reason, you watch that video and he's just like, yeah, he's very, very calm, very chill. He's like walking to Luke and he's like, we got to figure out how to get better food in this house. He looks at me, he's like,
Tim Pool's impression.
we should put him in charge of getting the food. That'd be really great.
Yeah.
Totally different. Camera goes on and he appears to lose it. It looks like a performance. He goes on Alex Jones wearing a Balenciaga gimp mask, and then he's got a net and he's going, hey Kanye, don't be meeting with them. We're gonna take your kids. And it's you're looking at this like, is this guy out of his mind?
Yeah.
But you see him off camera before the show, and he's having an intelligent, normal conversation.
So the whole thing's a troll job now, I guess. So Ye's been playing every single one of you. Okay, that was like the conspiracy theory that I joked. Like, I was like, if I was prone to conspiracy theories because it helps me, make sense of the real world rather than live in reality, I guess I would believe this. That's the one I would go with. It's not real. It's a conspiracy theory, but...
with you. Right. As soon as the camera turns on, come on, man. Alex Jones is right. Put some money in the jar. Whoever's here, go down to where Alex Jones is right jar, put money in. He said he felt like he was in one big publicity stunt. I think he's right.
Yeah. But at the same time,
If any of you listen to Knowledge Fight, that jar, like, is it you put $1 in if he's right, or you put $1 in if he's wrong? Because if it's you put $1 in if he's wrong, that would end the entire Tim Pool empire. Like, if someone can convince him to do that, be like, Tim Pool, super chat him. I challenge you. Can you do the Alex Jones $1 in a jar every time he's wrong? But you have to catalog it based on the actual cataloging done by Knowledge Fights. Because at that point, it would be like you wouldn't last a couple episodes.
In a court of law, being allegedly anti-Semitic isn't an excuse for an insanity, though. Insanity.
What Barnes was saying is that Kanye will come out and say he didn't pay taxes because, it's going to go to all the Jewish people who control everything. That would be his weird, crazy excuse or something.
It would be interesting to look at what was it, Wesley Snipes? It would be interesting to look. I think that was the example that he referenced. It would be interesting to look at that particular case and see exactly what happened there, just to get a reference of how that previously played out to how what might be the strategy here. But who knows at the end of the day? What do you think, Ian?
Well, I'm glad
you're more of an empath and intuitive person.
I was thinking about this as like for the long term, like where is this along the path of humanity when we look back in 1,000 years? Like what was happening right now, and what will they remember it happening? I think what's happening is crazy as it is Kanye's waking up a bunch of Jewish people and pointing them to God. Like last night on.
Well, you're the empath. What is your read on the guy who just said that he loves Hitler and he loves Nazis? What do you think about that? Well, I mean, if I was to really give my honest answer, he's waking up Jewish people to God. Yeah, that would be like, that's my read.
That Gavin McGinnis interview. I'll explain it.
Even Tim's like, wait. You're not serious, are you? Okay, wait. I want to hear this. How does MOONLORD get out of this one? This is quite the pickle you found yourself in, my friend.
Gavin was like,
I don't know about that one, Ian.
Yeah, Gavin's like, because Nick was saying, there's a cabal, or they were saying there's a cabal of people that are preventing Kanye from, getting to another echelon of wealth or whatever. There's a cabal, and Kanye's like, it's the Jewish people. And Gavin was like, I don't think they're Jewish. If you don't believe in God, you're not Jewish. And it's something I said last week too. So Gavin, if you're listening, hell yeah, dude, nice one. And it's true. And
No, that's not true.
Let me finish, please.
Oh no. Well, R.I.P. MOONLORD. We all know what happened to the last MOONLORD. When Weed Lord started getting like fucking in Tim's face, it was not long. You only get a little bit of pushback, It depends on how much you push back on the pushback. If you accept your place, if you're like, oh, okay, I apologize, Tim, you are correct, then you will survive this.
I understand, but I want to like, if you make a point, just explain. If you make like 12 points in a row, we can't address all of them. It's called the Gish Gallop. So if you said a few things right now that I think need to be addressed. One, you can be ethnically Jewish and not religious.
Yeah, well, I think you need a different word for that.
Okay, well, that's an important thing to make.
Why? You need. Well, I'm sorry. I won't permit it. I won't allow it. Okay.
It's like saying the word means two different things. It's nonsense. The word means something. What does the word mean? What does Jewish mean? Okay, let's define it and move on. Give me two definitions.
You can say religiously, or you can say ethnically. Then, right?
Well, I'm just talking about the word. What does the word mean? Let's be specific. The word means that you're Jewish, meaning what? That you're a Jew, meaning what? That you believe in God. That's a tenet of Judaism. That's like the tenet.
You can be an atheist Jew. There are many. What are you talking about?
I'm pretty sure we have people here who are ethnically Jewish.
Their parents were, like, if your great-great-grandparents were Jewish, then that doesn't mean that you are.
So, MOONLORD just canceled a lot of Jewish people. A lot of them. I'm sorry, you're no longer Jewish according to the rules. I mean, I don't make them up. He does. He's the one making this up.
You got to believe in it. It's a process. It's like an understanding. My thoughts are that what's going to happen is people are realizing, like, if you're a fallen Jew, if you've like no longer believed in this and you're just this atheist taking advantage of people, you're going to realize that God is great. That it's there for all of us. So we're all in this together. And I think that what's happening is there's going to be a revelation within Judaism and probably all the major religions on earth, that there's going to be some sort of a transformation where people come back to the faith. And
Tim, any pushback? Are you going to stop any part of this? You were like, okay, I have to stop you now and then dissect everything you said, because this is a Gish Gallop and there's too many things. So we got to break it up piece by piece. So starting on the first one, you can actually be a secular Jewish person. That's just the thing. You can be both, like, can we differentiate between being ethnically Jewish as well as being religiously Jewish? But wait. And oh no, you're just
Kanye will be looking at someone that saved the Jews.
A reformation.
Hey, what up, Lucid Fox? Everyone go check out twitch.tv/Lucid Fox.
Yeah.
I just have to say,
to get his warm buttered voice.
Because he returned him to God.
I think this may be one of the most insane things I've ever heard you say.
Sure, man. I'm talking about what people...
I think this may be the most insane thing I've ever heard you say in a very, and I will stress this, very long list of contenders. This is the guy who, do you know the reason we call him MOONLORD? Because one of the earliest YouTube videos he is losing his shit over people mining the moon. He's like, mine the fucking moon, people. What is wrong with you? Why are we not mining the moon? And he gets so angry about it, all the way to here, where Tim is like, I think this is the most batshit thing you've ever said. And to be honest, he might not be wrong. I don't fully disagree
people,
with him.
let me just, they're often told they're crazy when they're talking about stuff like
Let me
this
just
in the
clarify a
present.
few things. Kanye West said he said Jewish people aren't allowed to be in control of things. He said the only way he would allow them to work for them if he could put cameras in their houses and spy on them. And you think that's him saving them?
Well, I think Savannah's onto something that Nick has been tweaking his mind the last 2 weeks with a bunch of anti-Semitic stuff. Nick, when he was pressed, when Gavin told Nick, I don't think they're Jewish. I think if you don't believe in God, you're not Jewish. And Nick was like, okay, maybe these people aren't Jewish. Maybe it's godless people, atheists. Okay, maybe.
So that's a neo-Nazi. So his opinion can be disregarded on everything. Yeah, no, his like ideology, worldview is antithetical to life. So you don't have to actually take anything he says with any grain of anything. Just doesn't matter. You just discount it. He's a Nazi. That's all there is.
But then immediately Nick switched to like, but Jesus Christ is the king and is the great God. And it's the same stuff Kanye's been splattering, like this deep Christian belief stuff. Like you got to get out of that and become like, so yeah, but I agree with you. Kanye has said some madly racist stuff in the last,
So yeah, that's a strange pivot. Doesn't really address any of the really concerning things you just said. You should probably say, actually, you're right, Tim. You can be a non-practicing Jewish person and still be Jewish. It doesn't take away your Jewishness. That's a very strange thing for you to think.
See, that's the thing. Is it race? It's not even a race. It's a religion. It's so confusing on purpose.
Wait, what?
There's an ethnicity as well.
It's the only religion on earth that happens to have an attached
Savannah? Savannah, you look like you want to say something.
This might get me canceled, but my legitimate question, I guess, for the entire movement, because
Righties, nothing gets you canceled. Come on, do you cancel each other? Is it?
you know what? I'm at the point where I do feel like the term anti-Semitism has been extremely overused. I am. And I want to know your guys' viewpoint on, okay, can we legitimately criticize the Jewish community or people who are Jewish that are in power? Are we allowed to criticize that, or is that anti-Semitism? Because I think what this is linking to is that broader conversation. And I think a lot of people in the right wing do have that question. I would like your guys' viewpoints on it, because I think this is something that a lot of people question, but we don't really talk about.
But why do you have to treat them like a monolith? That's like when you say like, well, apparently we're allowed to say this thing about black people, but we're not allowed to say this thing about Jewish people. It's like, you shouldn't be saying that thing about black people. That you shouldn't treat all black people like a monolith. You shouldn't see like, well, black people are predisposed to blank. No, stop. That's the problem. Like, I'm going to tell you both are wrong. It's not like, well, if we're allowed to do this, why can't we do this one?
I think if you just hate somebody, that's hatred. That's because of how they were born or how they look or their religion. That's wrong. But I think government should be criticized, no matter what kind of government it is, including the Israeli government or Israeli individuals. So I think that's the distinction that I see myself.
Gavin McInnes made a point. He said, when you meet someone, they're a blank slate. You treat them as an individual. And so the issue with the Ye stuff is, he mentioned Jon Stewart. I mentioned Dave Chappelle. They both made a similar point. In Hollywood and media, there's a lot of Jewish people. The problem is Kanye explicitly stated in more than one interview, he lumps all of them together regardless of what that really means. Yeah. So like, I think the issue is, if you take a look at Harvard.
So what you just said, even though this one's a little more subtle, when you say media, do you know how broad that term is? We're talking all media? What? Radio, television, new media, podcasts, zines, blogs, websites, socials, YouTubes, like fucking all media. Like the one category that people try to give you a little bit of like, so you can understand here, there is a lot of Jewish people in, say, Hollywood, as in Hollywood studios and stuff like that. And there's historic reasons for that, but that does not mean they control the media. That's the anti-Semitic conspiracy theory. All the major news networks are not controlled by Jewish people. All of them, the biggest ones. That's just such a weird thing to say. Well, I mean, media.
Asian people are overrepresented in Harvard. It does not mean you go up to an Asian person and be like, this person must be good at math. It's you treat the individual like the individual. Me growing up in Chicago with my friends, we had some Asian friends who were as dumb as a box of rocks. Then of course you see the tropes about certain things. What I end up learning, I should say, in my view, the reason Asians may be overrepresented in Harvard is because the culture that they inherit, its cultural elements are studiousness and punctuality, and it's like strictness and authoritativeness and authoritarian, like we see in the Chinese Communist Party. So you look at people who come from that culture, they're going to have a very, very distinct and strict way of raising their kids. Those kids are more likely to exhibit certain behaviors, like they're going to be studious. If I were to come out and just be like, wow, that proves it. Asian people are all one way or another. It's just not correct. So the issue is when people say the issue is Jewish people, it's the same thing as the left saying Asians should have.
He's like half calling out a problem while like exacerbating it simultaneously and very smoothly, by the way, just like fucking going back and forth.
A higher standard to get in college because they're Asian. And I'm like, no, none of that. A person comes up to me, I say, who are you? What do you want? What does this mean? I don't think Asians are conspiring to get into colleges. Asians are suing to keep people out of colleges. Well, there are people who are Asian who are suing Harvard, but it's because Harvard's making it hard on these individuals who may not have, I'll put it this way, poor working class Asian people being told they can't go to Harvard is to me completely insane. Completely insane. And I'm not going to blame all Asian people for filing lawsuits against Harvard.
Yeah, but that applies to everyone. Like poor people or poor working class people who want to go to higher education but can't afford it. That's the problem. That does not matter. Does not matter. Come on, Tim, this is your shit. This should be easy. You're like, I hate identitarianism, as in you hate identity politics, but I hate identity politics. It's like, okay, so then the problem here is that under our economic system, we have a situation in which a lot of people can't afford to go to higher education. And why does that fall sometimes along racial lines? Well, can we look at our history in the United States, for example? Oh, yeah, it's like, oh, okay, yeah, okay, that makes sense. Can you look at the history in Canada as to why that happens disproportionately to Indigenous people? Oh, yes, okay, well, that makes sense. All right, that it explains itself. There we have it.
Because Harvard is concerned that more Asians means less Hispanics or black people.
You know what? I think it's all white guys that are responsible for all of our wrongs, all of our ills. Everything wrong in this society is because of white guys. I say that as a proud person of color. And whenever we do this, I think it needs to be called out, especially when it comes to kind of generalizations. I think we should always try to be more specific. But again, if you have hatred for somebody, that's just because of the way they are, that's just wrong. That's just how I plainly see it.
See, and okay, so this is my legitimate questioning too. And for example, Kyrie Irving, Nike just dropped him, right? Because he shared a link to an allegedly anti-Semitic documentary. I've never seen the documentary myself, so maybe it is anti-Semitic, I'm not sure. But when people call that out and say, okay, why do we see this consistent pattern of people sharing something, the media immediately labeling it as anti-Semitism, this person getting canceled, this is a pattern that we have seen a time or two.
So I have no idea what I'm talking about, but at the same time, I'm going to throw myself in there and say conspiracy.
Why is it that we're not allowed to speak about this? Again, this is just me questioning these things.
Hey, what up, Lost? Everyone go check
But we
out
are
Lost
speaking
channel.
about it right now. The story about Kyrie Irving has been talked about a whole lot, and it's cancel culture, and we think it's wrong. Like Luke has the Kyrie Irving jersey that he puts up periodically. I think people should be entitled to free speech. They should be allowed. Like in 2018, when Twitter started banning.
So wait, so cancel culture is now, again, private corporations having the power to do that, not the individuals, not the woke mob online, or did the woke mob control the corporation to give it the cancel culture 1984, and that's how that one happened?
People, alt-right individuals. I did an interview with insiders, Oliver Darcy, saying like, this is wrong, they shouldn't be doing this.
Right.
It's weird to me that people are acting like the issue with Kanye West and what he's saying about Jewish people is unique. I'm like, what are you talking about? Like, there's tons of instances where people have said something offensive and then gotten canceled over it, and we've argued that shouldn't be happening.
Right.
Yeah, what happened to Kyrie is absolutely insane, and I think he had a big target on his back, especially with what happened within the last few years with him standing up for his personal freedom to choose not to be vaccinated. He was punished by a lot of people. The corporate media attacked him, and I think they're just looking for any reason just to try to get him out of the discourse, just to try to stop him as much as they can. And he literally tweeted, I don't think it was even a link. I think it was a photo. I think it was a poster for a documentary. They also tried to get him in trouble for posting clips from Alex Jones.
Yeah.
So he's an individual that I routinely put the jersey behind because I think he's unfairly punished. I think a lot of the stuff that he's going through is absolutely ridiculous. He donated $500,000 to the ADL. He apologized for sharing a link without even giving it any, for sharing a photo of a documentary without even giving it any context. And they still decided to punish him and cancel it. That's over, and that's crazy. And I agree with you. That's something that deserves pushback on. But when someone is hateful against someone else, they should be called out as well. Right?
It's not unique to Jewish people. I'll give you a few examples. Netflix executive, who this is I think in 2018, was giving examples of hate speech, saying the slurs. So people in the meeting went to HR and complained.
Yeah,
they called him in and they said, what did you say? He's like, I was explaining these are words that shouldn't be used on Netflix specials. What words? He said it. They went, oh, they fired him. You had the race car driver whose dad in the 80s used the N-word on the radio. So sponsors pulled out from him. He didn't even do anything. Yeah. Cancel culture is insane. I think it's, and I get all of the woke, crazy leftist organizations writing articles about it because I said the Alex Jones interview with Ye was good because it shows us
Well, this one might be true. Netflix chief executive Reed Hastings said he fired his chief communications officer. Well, it's a chief communications officer, not exactly chief executive, but chief communication officer after he used a racial slur in his conversation at work on multiple occasions, an episode that created a moment of introspection at the streaming juggernaut. Jonathan Friedland, the executive who was fired, said in a series of tweets that he spoke insensitively while talking to his public relations team about the words that offend in comedy. He didn't direct the slur at any co-worker. People familiar with the matter said, but using the word rather than referring to it as the N-word offended his colleagues. Leaders have to be beyond reproach, and the example we set, and unfortunately I fell short of that standard. I feel awful about the distress this lapse caused to the people in the company I love, and I want everyone to feel included and appreciated. In a memo to employees, Mr. Hastings and Mr. Friedman apologized. Several people who were in the meeting with the PR team told him how inappropriate and hurtful his use of the N-word was. A few days later after the incident, Mr. Friedland said, I mean, this seems pretty typical for corporations this size, by the way. I'm not here to defend Netflix or the decisions. Obviously, if you think there's a problem with monopolies, it's much bigger than the individual decisions that each company makes at every single turn. That's one of the reasons I hate the whole fucking team sports things, where it's like, well, Elon took Twitter, so Twitter good now. If only someone who's anti-SJW could take over Netflix, then all the executives could screen the N-word. But yeah, I mean, that seems, if I was running a company, that seems like a fucking very extreme measure to take on someone who's like, I'm here to teach you about things that you can and cannot say. Yes, if you're not black, don't use the N-word ever, and that's easy. But yeah, I probably would have suspended the person or been like a stern talking to. Doesn't really matter. I don't control Netflix, never will. But I think that might be one of the few in the history of me watching Tim Pool's stories where it's almost right. It's almost perfectly right, because sometimes he just says things and then we Google it and we're like, oh, that's totally wrong. No, that kitty litter box shit never happened. And Google it and it's like, oh no, that never happened. Actually, that kid wasn't actually assaulted by a trans girl at school. That turns out that story was made up. And then you're like, oh whoa, but he's just saying that out loud.
Exactly what Ye believes. And immediately people were like, hey man, I don't want to be associated. I don't like that. Those are bad ideas. I don't think we should shut down people's lives, take away their banks, destroy everything because they think things that I think are stupid or wrong. Right. I think we just speak up, we have conversations like this and explain why we think they're wrong.
I mean, look what happened to Salman Rushdie a couple weeks ago. I mean, that deserves to be discussed, I think, if we're going to be talking about a lot of this stuff, when we're going to be talking about this conversation. Again, I think blanketly, it's just very easy to say, hey, you hate somebody because of the way that they're born, you're a jackass.
Oh my God, he's not going to, it's already 17 minutes in. They're not going to talk about the Jones Crowder thing anymore.
Jon Stewart and Dave Chappelle's lives have not been destroyed. They've talked about it, they've addressed it, it's come up here. The thing about what Kanye said is, Kanye praised Hitler, praised Nazis.
Kanye's on a different level from
Kanye said
else.
They're not allowed to control things, and he would only hire them if he can follow them home, put cameras in their house to prove they aren't spies. Like, okay, if you said that about any ethnic group, people are gonna get mad at you.
I feel like we're not getting anymore.
I agree. The left, when they blame white people for everything, is ridiculous, and it's wrong.
When has this ever happened? What is this weird straw person I see before me? Just blame all white people. The woes. Did you know every bad thing that ever happens in the world, Timmy, every single one, is done by a white person throughout human history as well, even before white people ever existed. Yes, it's a relatively new concept in the history of human history, but still, back in the day, all evil was created by the white. Yes, the great white emperor has cast us, Satan of the white. Yes, like, what are you talking about? What is this nonsense?
Wrong. I also think it's...
I swear, like, seeing what his head, like how it wrapped around CRT, just trying to describe it, just try to, like, can you describe what you think CRT is to me? Well, CRT is about how time is racist and that white people are inherently racist and that white babies are racist, and you're like, no, none of this. Okay, I see where the problem is here. Like, you've got this weird, warped version of the world where you think that every single person who explains to you things, like, I want to explain systemic racism to you. I want to explain how these systems function. And you're like, well, so you're saying white people are evil. It's like, no, I'm not. You're saying I'm evil because I'm not saying that you're evil because of the way you're born. I'm not. I'm trying to just explain, again, these are observations made on society. No, okay, all right, we're lost.
Wrong when people like Kanye or anyone else blame Jewish people for it. I also think it's wrong when people blame black people for it. I'm like, let's blame criminals. Let's blame thieves. Let's blame corruption. And let's try to figure out how we live and work together and we don't blame each other just because we look a certain way. Because I just, man, I'm imagining just the idea of just racism in general, it really does make me angry.
Same, yeah.
Like judging someone in any capacity without actually knowing.
Just found out about racism, dog. That sucks.
who they are and knowing what they believe is a problem.
wrong.
Because then what? You're going to be a person who likes white people? Okay, guess what? All the Antifa people, overwhelmingly white. So it's certainly not white people that are good or better. No, because Antifa's out of their minds. Then you've got Latinos, you've got people from Cuba who love America more than these white Antifa. Yeah. That's just me. That's just me. I'm saying.
So they're self-hating white people, just like there's self-hating
liberals.
Jewish people.
You blame systems that breed these kinds of problems, like the Roman Empire is the white person problem.
And here goes Moonlord. Hey, Moonlord's ready. Let him off the chain. Open the cage.
Is the Roman patriarchy. That thing created a church to get into people's minds. It tried to control the world. It's still trying to control the world through its church. Like, that's the white person problem, is the Roman patriarchy. That's a real thing. The Jewish problem is the banking cartels that were
And he did not disappoint. My word. Just release him. Sorry, I wasn't ready for Moonlord to go full moon there.
by Amschel Rothschild in the 1500s. His three sons went off to England, Italy, and France to make the Rothschild banking empire. It's the banking superstructure that's the problem, not the race or the culture. It doesn't matter what you look like. It's the behavior.
And I think Jones actually made that point, and then Ye admitted he was.
Oh, okay, so that was correct. No errors found. Yeah, zero notes. Okay, let's move on.
Wrong. He said he shouldn't have blanketed all people, and that it's actually about banking and stuff like that.
See, and that's the thing with Kanye that's inconsistent with his interviews is I feel like when he does get that pushback, he's like, okay, well, he'll capitulate that point, you know? We
looked up the CEOs of banks because we were talking with Michael Malice, and it's like the CEOs of a bunch of these banks are just white dudes.
Yeah.
It's I don't know, man.
From all over.
This is the problem I have. Mainly it's because I want to solve.
And they were Irish, too. A lot of them are Irish, but no one's asking the Irish question.
These problems. Why is the Federal Reserve ripping people off and destroying everything? Well, if you come out and just scream that someone's like religious background or
President of the United States is Irish. Just saying. So was the last Democratic president, too. A lot of Irish cops in the United States. Disproportionately, by ratio of the population, a lot of Irish cops.
background, I'm like, bro, that's not the problem. Is the system, and it's being supported by a whole bunch of people of all different backgrounds.
Yeah, how are you going to solve anything by saying, specifically, focusing on some of the outer details rather than the actual core issues of the problem and the effects of it?
It's like this. It's like a homeless white man has privilege and Oprah Winfrey is disadvantaged. Yeah, sorry, dude, I'm not buying that.
Again, you don't understand any of this. You've all got this weird cartoon version that you've been fed. It makes sense because you hang out with white supremacists all day. If you hang out with John Doyle and Jack Pasebic and you just loop them on this constant loop and then bring in Milo and then, oh, hey, Nick Fuentes, get over here. What are they all going to talk about? What's the world perspective they all have? They have, again, this cartoonish thing. Like, we have been taught, everyone has been telling us, and darling, it's not true, that apparently white people are evil. Well, we're not. None of us are evil. We're good. All of us are very good. We're good boys. And it's like, no one is saying that white people are inherently evil. Where is this coming from?
When they come out and they say, white people, this is white heteronormative patriarchy, I'm like, shut up, dude.
In New York City, they implemented resources in the official...
So liberals broke the brains of the right. That's my best read on this, okay? Like, it peaked at the release of that book, White Fragility. White Fragility came out. All of a sudden, you had Jimmy Fallon for the first time being like, so... I'm white? And then all of a sudden the right was like, oh, fuck this noise. Nah, we're not fucking with this shit.
School board there that made sure, this is at the head of the Department of Education in New York City, that if you're a white student that's poor, resources shouldn't be going to you. They should be going to a rich black person, a black kid, mainly because of the institutionalized racism inside of that school or structure. That's the policies that are being implemented right now that are...
So what about this? What about you just have a policy that is going to disproportionately try to affect the poorest regions of America? And if that happens to disproportionately affect people of color, well, that's just a side effect. But that's not the purpose of it. We're just going to invest in the poorest regions and develop up the poorest regions of the country. It'll help a lot of white people. There's a lot of poor white people in America. A lot of poor white people.
Absolutely insane. That need to be pushed back on and are racist.
For the record, when it comes up again, Semite is more than just an Arab, or more than just a Jew. It's an Arab. It's Phoenician, Akkadian. It's all those people from that southwestern Asian peninsula or area, not really peninsula.
He's got the notes, everyone. He's online.
Those are all Semites. So if you hated Muslims during 2005, you were an anti-Semite, buddy. If you have anti-Muslim in you, you're an anti-Semite. I don't like that they act like it's only Jewish. It's like there's a lot of people. The Semitic people were a lot of different people.
Right. It's just another word for racism, essentially. That's what the ethnic and religious thing have been getting confused for you there.
But it should be very clear when you use that word what it means.
So they're trying to do the term anti-Semitism that they've done to every other thing, like woke, CRT, gaslighting, triggered, all these kind of things where they take it and then they reappropriate it and then they're like, this is ours now. This is what it means.
It does not mean Jewish person.
There's tough challenges in the space. I think everybody gets it. I grew up on the south side of Chicago. 47th Street was just north of us. When you crossed it,
Cue up Tim talking about how hard his street life was.
The entire community was black. There was an area they called the LeClaire Courts. When people from when black people from north of 47th would come down south of 47th, and then there was this thing where a bunch of young girls would rob young girls south of 47th, and it was always a racial disparity. You'd see a lot of that. The cops wouldn't let you go north of 47th, and I'm like, look, man, I'm not stupid enough to think that this is the problem of someone's race. It's a problem of two distinct communities that don't see each other. And it may be a component of race. That's why they don't view each other as like part of the same community. But a lot of it was constructed. A lot of the project housing, the redlining, the block busting created this element. So when you go into areas where it's like mixed, everybody's getting along. Right. So I think what happens is a lot of people see something like that. They see these barrier streets. In New York, I lived in Crown Heights, and there was a split between the Jewish neighborhood and the black neighborhood, and they had shootouts because they were rival drug dealers. Right. A lot of people thought it was like a race war or an ethnic thing. And then I learned from the people actually involved, they were like, no, it's just because they're trying to sell drugs over here. Right. And so why is it that it was tended to be black people fighting against Jewish people was not the race. It was that if you lived in this area, the dealers you were working with, it was a Jewish neighborhood. If you lived in this area, the dealers you're working with, it was in a black neighborhood. This is like a deep problem in cities with racial segregation. And there's a lot of components to it that I think are real, notably that people choose to live in areas where people look like each other. That is what, creates racism. Or as a component of it. Me personally.
That's what creates racism. That's where racism was forged, right before the great gentrification began. What do you think about redlining? What do you think about Jim Crow laws? What do you think about? Jesus.
I'm going to try to avoid stereotyping someone based on experiences like that, and let someone be an individual so they can be as worthy as they choose to be.
What do you think about white flight, a real phenomenon
groups
that
and
happens?
Cabals and gangs are real. They're real. People can get together, and sometimes you get with what you know. A lot of times that's the easiest thing, path of least resistance. If you speak the same language, if I don't know if they look like you, maybe it's easier to identify. But just because groups are real doesn't mean that people aren't individuals. When you see their eyeballs, you realize the skin suit is almost irrelevant. The brainstem creature is like what we really are, floating in these meats.
I feel like Moonlord's having a glow up right now. He's having a moment. He's just had a day and he wants to be seen. At first, Tim wasn't really reading it well. He was kind of like, I gotta be honest with you, man. That's the most batshit insane thing you've ever said on my show. But now they're just kind of taking a step back. You're like, you know what? Just let him fly.
Backs pulling on electrodes, getting our bodies to move around. But you see the humanity in their eyes, man. You get right through that. I thought racism was gone in 2008. For there was a brief moment of a year where everyone.
Oh my God, you are the meme. I meme this shit all the time. I'm always like, yeah, racism ended with Obama.
One was the same, and I use that word hyperbolically because I know we have genetic differences, but we're so similar, so freaking similar.
In-group, out-group situation.
I'll tell you this: we look at that poll, that data that shows that white.
So we're more similar than you'd ever imagine. We're all the same creature. We're all human beings. Races don't actually exist at all. There's no biological determinant to prove that race is real. It's not real. We made it up. We're actually just all people. We do have different genetic features. We do have different combinations of things. Some of us have perhaps larger feet than others. Some of us have smaller hands. Some of us have different counts of melanin in our skin. Yes, that's true. But that's just human beings. There's not races. They're not real.
Liberals are the only group with an out-group preference. That shows that among black people, Asian people, Latino, they have an in-group racial preference. They are slightly more inclined to want to be around people who are of the same ethnic background or race.
Those studies show that human beings have a preference for that in general, for like-looking human beings. Similar-looking human beings, not just by the traits that we bunch people together into races. Because I'm sure, as you know, there is a lot of different Asian people. When you say Asian people, holy fuck, is that ever a monstrously huge group? Like, that is one hell of a monolith.
White conservatives, same thing. It's slight. It's not definitive. Liberals, the only with a negative. They don't like being around white people.
That's interesting.
Yeah, so I think Tucker Carlson hit the nail on the head with a hammer when he said he's like,
I've never encountered that myself. Like liberals just being like, ew, no whites. No, too many whites around me. I can't. My quota of white friends has been met, Martha. I'm sorry. And we already have a Karen. One Karen is enough. In fact, we're thinking of removing her from the group.
not racist. It's white liberal women. They're the ones who are voting for all these policies and doing all these things.
I was a white liberal.
I'm like, is that racist and sexist though? Because you're calling out white women.
I didn't like being around only people. I was born in Cuyahoga Falls. They call it Caucasian Falls because it was like 99.9% white people, and I was disgusting. Like until I was 18, it was like racist, and I left with New York City, Chicago, LA. I just wanted to be around different cultures. That was the white liberal in me. I couldn't stand just being isolated in this one monoculture.
Why was it disgusting?
Because I knew there was more. I knew that racism wasn't right. It didn't sound right.
Just
I knew
keeps getting
How was it racist if it was like overwhelmingly white?
they would make racist jokes about other
disgusting?
people, other races and stuff, and it was just like,
okay.
if you were like, no, that's not good, then you get ostracized by the group of racists. And so I'm forced, like as a little kid, I don't want to say they're all racist, but I think there's just inherent racism in all of us from that environment, whereas like that was normal, and our parents had come from racist environments. I had to get out of it. I had to see the world. Then I went to
Good
South
for you.
America, and man, that's like the other end of the spectrum where I was the odd man out, and that was a very lonely experience too. Anyway, I advise everyone get a chance to dip into another culture. I live down a Normal Avenue in LA, and it's
What? I don't know. I feel sad, Moonlord. Maybe that's where you were led astray. I don't understand that. I was certainly one of the few white people in Japan. I did not get that feeling. I was one of the only white people who lived in Flatbush, New York. I fucking loved it there. It was so much fun. Oh my god. Like I wasn't like, oh well, a lot of black people around. Definitely don't feel safe as the only white person. Oh no.
Every Sunday.
What does that mean?
It's like the Latino, man, they're getting wild on Sunday, you know? They got the food
No,
carts
you're getting
going.
wild.
dancing,
You're getting
playing
wild.
music at church.
We used to have the elotes carts on the south side by
yeah,
Vinham
they-
Park, where I used to hang out.
Yeah,
and then the mayor banned them.
Yeah.
They were only allowed on the other side of Cicero, where all the billboards turned Spanish. That was deeply offensive to me because it was the most fun thing when the elotes cart pulled up. You had $1, and he shaved the corn into the cup with some mayo, some Parmesan, some cayenne pepper, stir it up, hand it to you.
Oh, look how cultured they
A
are.
cup of corn, and then we don't know why, but there was like a rule put in place banning them from the west side of Cicero Avenue,
Yeah.
and that just happens to be like a dividing line where you start seeing more Hispanic and Spanish billboards, and we were like, yo, what the man?
Yeah,
We loved the
for real.
elotes guy. He was cool.
Yeah, it's
and
so
tamales.
good.
He had
It's so
tamales
good.
too.
It was so great to just witness the humanity and people of other. It's not race. It's not the word race isn't the right word. What's the word? What's the difference between like someone from Africa and someone from Ireland?
Culture, I guess.
Just different cultures?
Different
multicultural.
cultures.
But if we're both born in the United
Africa,
States and
the
we grew up across
continent?
the street from each other, then what's the difference? What would you,
You're both American.
I would still say it's more of a culture thing, though, right?
Yeah.
But you said you felt isolated
in South America, that was interesting
America?
because I had the lightest skin, long hair. They would call me Thor from the movie because they were like, hey, this guy. And
That's harsh, bro. Did you have to deal with that kind of racism? Them calling you Thor? Did they call you like Chris Hemsworth? You fucking serious? No, that's just like, it's like racial stereotyping. Because like, you know, there's like, oh, I see a white person and I immediately see Chris Hemsworth, one of the hottest human beings on the planet. That's gross.
And when I walk in the street, people would be staring at me and looking at me. And it was like, I didn't speak their language very well. It was a very weird experience. I have a lot of more empathy towards people that might identify in an out group now.
Yo, I went to Thailand during
I wanted to say, like, I'm basically indigenous. I'm basically black. I don't know if you know that, Tim. You now have a black member of the cast.
Where'd you go?
Bangkok.
Oh, cool.
And I can't remember exactly where we were, but it was this like big market avenue that went really far, and it was just crowded shoulder to shoulder with people. I could see over everyone's head. It was just, you know, and like the person I was with, we were both like on average taller than everyone, and I was like, wow, like we're in this country, everyone here is Thai. I'm like a foot taller than everybody. I'm like, or like, you know, half a foot taller than everybody. Then I went to Sweden, and I was just like looking up at everybody, like, this is very interesting.
Yeah, you know what?
This feels like Timmy's first multiculturalism. That's all of these stories. And I went to this other country. You'll never believe this. They didn't speak English. Like, no one really spoke a lot of English. Like, some people did. Like, the guy in the cab helped me. The people in the hotel spoke really good English. But then people in restaurants, they didn't speak English. It was so weird.
Everybody was taller than
A
me.
good conversation to have is the conversation about genetics and the difference of genetics. They call it race realism sometimes. Like, but I think that's an important free speech.
Only if you use it in terms to serve or uphold the idea of race. If you're like, well, black people are predisposed to crime, yeah, that's race realism. Because what do you mean by black people? You're saying black people like a monolith. That's where you're getting super weird, fucked up, and racist. That's fucked up. If you say there are regions of different countries in Africa where the people who come from those countries can be predisposed to, say, certain medical conditions, and they should be screened for certain medical conditions, do you see how different that is? That's so different than being like, I think like all black people get X, and then you're like, okay, well, but there's a lot of different black people in the world from a lot of different parts of the world. There's like, you are just lumping all black people into one category.
Each conversation to objectively identify differentials in genetics, but also acknowledge the similarity in our consciousness and our brains and our spines and stuff like that. But you got to be able to, like, with love, acknowledge the differences.
Tim, were you talking about tattoo talk? Or was it?
But I mean, With love. Y'all are good at sports, right?
Just like it's a famous market in Bangkok. I'd like to check out the name.
I don't know. I went to this mall that was insanely huge, though, in Bangkok, where they were like, it was one of the biggest malls in the world or something like that.
Yeah. That's another
I don't know.
yeah.
Also, before we're going to go to Super Chats, but I want to give a shout out to Roberto Jr., our rooster, because there's just something hilarious about when you, so, they're like 1.5 feet tall, but when you walk in there, Roberto Jr. turns his head up to look you in the eyes. And I just think it's funny because I'm like, he doesn't need to see my face. Like, what, I don't know. It's just funny. Like, he can see you and see what you're doing, but he wants to look up at your face and he turns his head sideways to look at you. It's just a funny thing. He's like, what are you doing? He's like, look at you.
Oh, good. Really glad you left that in, because after watching this for 31 minutes and 51 seconds, had I not had that last little anecdote, oof, Tim, I would have felt unfulfilled. Do you enjoy the Serfs but prefer not to have to use your eyeballs? Many are saying this. Well, we've got the solution for you. It's the Serf Times in podcast form, available on most major podcasting networks now. If you enjoy it, please consider leaving a good review and feedback because it really helps the show out, apparently, and it's free, just like the podcast.
To our gods, Xander Corvus and Peyton L. Juste, we shall spend many a generations building mighty cathedrals in your honor. To our monarch, Tom Spiker, we are but your oafish jesters, here to offer you a laugh at any opportunity. To our brave knights of the Round Table, Rachel K., Izzy Solidarity, Victoria Bell, Sebastian Demmel, Mark Harmon, Benji Arney, Scary Earth Human, Tony, DM Rivera, Resident Scarecrow, Sir Nickus, Cheryl Alvarez, Ruby Kelly, Brandon, Words Greenwood, Everything Important, Hegbert Celine, Matthew Scarborough, Stellar Vision, Ariane McCarthy, Doug Cady, Daniel Sutton, Jenna Tao, Dark Puppy, Quiet One 85, Anna Loves Riley, Omni, Riley and Anna, Poodlehawk, Multimondi, Trevbot EXE, Brian Ephraim, Anthropophojack, Catherine, Ramon Acosta, Incosin, Ralph Parler, Violent Orchard, Political Puppy, La Media Panza, Todd Buckingham, and Todd La Jeunesse. We salute our valiant heroes off to fight injustice everywhere.